Close your eyes and step into the Red Fort of Delhi in 1648. The morning call to prayer echoes across the marble courtyards as you walk through corridors where absolute power ruled over human lives. You're about to witness how the Mughal Empire's grandeur was built on the suffering of countless forgotten souls, young men, eunuchs, servants, and those who existed at the mercy of imperial desire. Feel the cold marble beneath your feet as you enter the imperial quarters. The air is thick with incense and fear. You're walking through a world where Emperor Shah Jahan's word could elevate a person to unimaginable wealth or condemn them to death with a single gesture. Every young man who served in these halls knew this reality intimately. If you're new here, subscribe now for more stories that reveal history's hidden truths, and tell me in the comments what you think of this life and where you're watching from tonight. Picture yourself as a 15-year-old boy named Baburi, working in the Camp Bazaar in Kabul in 1503. You're selling goods to soldiers and merchants when Emperor Babur himself notices you. Babur would later write in his Baburnama that you were a lad belonging to the Camp Bazaar, named Bauhari, and that it was a passionate love. You feel your blood freeze as you realize the most powerful man in the kingdom has become infatuated with you. That look means your childhood is over. Watch as the palace eunuchs approach you after the emperor's interest becomes known. The boys were usually castrated and turned into eunuchs to give sexual satisfaction to the nobles, as was common practice in Muslim empires of that time. These men, castrated in childhood to serve the imperial household, have become the intermediaries between the emperor's desires and their fulfillment. Their leader, once like you a young boy caught in the web of imperial power now, wields authority over hundreds of servants, but his power comes at the cost of his humanity and physical wholeness. You're led to quarters within the palace complex, luxurious by any standard but unmistakably a prison. Golden silk curtains hang from the windows, but guards stand outside your door. Persian carpets cover the floor, but you cannot leave without permission. This is your new reality, Pampered Captivity, in service to the emperor's whims. Listen to the stories whispered in these chambers. The older servants tell you about Emperor Babur's obsession with young Baburi, how the founder of the empire would compose passionate poetry about a boy whose only crime was being beautiful. In his own words from the Baburnama, Babur wrote of his strange inclination and passionate love for this young man. Homosexuality was very common in Muslim empires at that time, and it was fairly common for young boys to be engaged in sexual activities in harems run by the emperors. They speak of how this pattern continued through Jahangir's court, where young men competed desperately for the emperor's attention, knowing that favor meant survival and neglect meant slow death. Feel the weight of preparation each morning. You must bathe in rosewater, apply kohl to your eyes, and dress in the finest silk. Your hair must be perfumed, your nails henna'd. You're being prepared like a sacrifice for the altar of imperial pleasure. Every morning, you look in the mirror and see less of yourself, more of what you're being molded into. Experience the terror of your first summons to the emperor's private chambers. The guards escort you through corridors lined with precious gems and paintings, but all you can think about is the stories you've heard. Some boys who enter these chambers gain the emperor's lasting favor through intimate relationships that were documented even in royal memoirs. Others emerge broken, their spirits crushed by experiences they can never speak of. The practice of keeping young men for sexual satisfaction was so normalized that emperors openly wrote about their attractions in official documents. Many never emerge at all, their fate sealed by the whims of absolute power. Witness the hierarchy of suffering around you. The palace is filled with hundreds of young men and boys in various states of servitude. Some are musicians, brought to court for their talents and kept for their beauty. Others are the sons of conquered rulers, held as both hostages and playthings. The eunuchs who guard them were once like them boys whose bodies were mutilated to serve the empire's needs. Watch as months turn to years. You learn to read the emperor's moods, to anticipate his desires before he voices them. You become skilled at seeming eager while your soul dies a little more each day. The other boys around you change, some grow hard and calculating. Others retreat into madness. A few find ways to gain genuine influence, but even they remain prisoners of their circumstances. Feel the crushing isolation. You cannot return to your family, they believe you're dead, killed in the conquest of your father's kingdom. You cannot form real friendships, because everyone around you is a potential rival for the emperor's attention. You cannot love or be loved freely, because your body and heart belong to your master. Experience the constant fear of aging. You watch older favorites fall from grace as their youth fades. Some are granted minor positions in the administration. Others are married off to distant nobles who treat them as curiosities. Many simply disappear, their fates unrecorded and their names forgotten. See how the system perpetuates itself. The emperor's sons, raised in this environment, view the exploitation of young men as natural and normal. Prince Aurangzeb, despite his later religious orthodoxy, grows up surrounded by this culture of power and sexual exploitation. The cycle continues, generation after generation. Listen to the silence that surrounds your suffering. The court historians write elaborate chronicles of military victories and architectural achievements, but they never mention the broken lives that made such grandeur possible. Your pain is considered too insignificant to record, your humanity too expendable to acknowledge. Watch as the Mughal Empire reaches its zenith under Shah Jahan. The same hands that build the Taj Mahal as a monument to love also destroy countless young lives in the pursuit of pleasure. The same wealth that creates architectural marvels also buys human beings like precious objects. Feel the weight of knowing that your story will never be told. Unlike the female concubines who sometimes gain historical recognition as mothers of princes, you and the other young men remain nameless shadows in the historical record. Your suffering is deemed unworthy of documentation, your lives too insignificant to matter. Experience the rare moments of resistance. Some boys attempt escape, only to be caught and brutally punished as examples to others. A few find ways to poison their captors or themselves. Most simply endure, day after day, year after year, until their youth fades and they become invisible even to those who once desired them. Witness the psychological destruction this system creates. The boys who survive often become hollow men, capable of inflicting the same cruelties they once suffered. They lose the ability to form genuine relationships, to trust, to love. The empire's need for beautiful young men creates a perpetual cycle of trauma and exploitation. See how the system finally begins to crumble. As the Mughal Empire weakens in the 18th century, the elaborate court culture that sustained these practices starts to decay. But by then, thousands of young lives have been consumed by the machine of imperial power, their stories lost to history. Stand in the ruins of the Red Fort today, and remember that beneath the tourist photographs and historical plaques lie the unmarked graves of countless forgotten souls. The marble walls that tourists admire were witnesses to systematic exploitation that official histories chose to ignore. The horrible truth is not in the specific details of any one practice, but in the broader reality of absolute power. The Mughal Empire, like many historical civilizations, was built on the principle that some human lives mattered more than others. The young men who served in these palaces, whether as musicians, servants, companions, or victims, were considered expendable resources in the pursuit of imperial pleasure. What makes this story even more tragic is how much remains hidden from history. The daily routines, living conditions, training processes, and specific experiences of these young men were never documented by court historians. Their voices, their fears, their small rebellions, their survival strategies, all of this was deemed too insignificant to record. The institutional details of how they lived, competed, aged, and died largely disappeared with them, leaving us only fragments like Babur's confessions and scattered references in foreign travelers' accounts. Their voices are lost to history, but their silence speaks volumes about the nature of power and the cost of empire. They remind us that behind every golden age lies a mountain of human suffering, and that the most beautiful monuments are often built on the graves of the forgotten.